About cultures living in two cultures, George Chmielewski will tell us now. And thank you for the picture. Over to you, George. Thank you.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, all fine, George.
Okay, well, as you know, my name's George Chmielewski, known in the Polish-speaking environment as Jurek or Jerzy. And so I've had parents who, as a consequence of World War II, ended up in England. And I'm going to just tell you about sort of my experiences as a Polish person, or Polak, born and bred and educated in the UK. And I'm going to share some thoughts and observations on emigracja. So these are the two things I'm going to speak. So Jan Paul II, on his visit to the UK at the special audience we had in Crystal Palace, basically said that we as the emigracja are like Poland, which was wrenched out of her own frontiers. So it is like a big tree, like a third of a big tree which was broken off and moved off, put into a different place. It was put into the ground in a different place and continued to grow in its own way, sprouting new roots into the soil there, and new trees sprouted from the roots, while Poland sort of continued developing on a different route. So the age group I'm born in was born in the 1960s, and we were sort of immersed in some sort of hope of returning to Poland. But we were told that for the time being we have to be in England. So my age group was introduced into this like village culture where everyone knew everyone else. We knew there was 3 or 4 Polish shops to look out for. Going to the doctor or dentist meant going to a Polish one. In fact, my dad was a dentist, and my sister and me came across other Polish dentists. So, in other words, we had a kind of closed Polish circle. We went to Parada, which was in Ealing Broadway, where my mum sort of bought Polish food. And so each one of us Polish children who was sort of born and bred in the UK really has got a different story to tell about our parents, because our parents came to the UK through different routes. Some came out of the Warsaw Uprising, some came through the horrors of concentration camps, and many of them found themselves as young people in the UK having to continue their education and integrate into British society. Many of my friends know very little about their parents because their parents never told them what they went through, because they went through really horrible things. My parents did tell my sister and me a bit more. So my mother is from the people who were deported into the USSR. And my dad is from the large group that escaped Poland and managed to get across the border into Hungary before the pincers of the Nazis and Soviet Union closed in. And how did I personally become conscious that I was Polish and England wasn't my country? Well, the surrounding environment was Polish, so at home, parents, grannies, visits from Polish friends and relations. So basically, like many children, I picked up Polish as a first language, just like any child who picks up whatever language is spoken at home. And I didn't know any different. We spoke Polish at home. I had Polish parents, Polish visitors, but there was something peculiar. When my mother took me into the streets, I realized and met other people. And when I was taken to the hairdresser at the age of 3, everybody was speaking a different language. And I was wondering what was happening. So my mum said to me that everybody's speaking in English. I thought, that's weird, we're speaking Polish at home. And I can't understand what they're saying in the street. I can't understand the hairdresser. So I started asking my mum about the environment. I was quite curious, and my mum started saying that, yes, we are Polish, but we live in England. And I sort of naturally asked my mum, why? And I asked her, Mummy, where are your toys? And she said, well, I'm afraid everything got burnt down. And I said, why? And she said, well, some bad people came in the night and took us away and burnt the house down. And I said, well, but we're Polish. And she said, yes, but Poland is... and then I realised that she's talking about Poland, where they came from, which is a place far away, further away than Austria or Yugoslavia, because as little children we were taken on holidays to Austria and Yugoslavia, travelling by train through France and Switzerland. So my spatial awareness was born, and I knew that there was a Poland far away there, particularly as an aunt came from Poland to visit us. So this was when I was 3 years old. I was at the hairdresser's, and the hairdresser was speaking po angielsku. And I thought, po angielsku, I didn't understand it. And then when I was close to 4 years old, and my dad was taking my sister and me for a walk, and we were going probably down Blakesley Avenue in Ealing, on the west side towards Ealing Broadway precisely. And my dad said to me, będziesz chodził do przedszkola. You're going to go to a nursery school. And I asked my dad, well, what's that? And he said, it's a special school where one learns English. And I thought, youch, I'm happy to be in the home environment, playing with my toys and Lego with my mummy and my sister and occasional friends. I don't want to go to nursery school. But the big day came, and the nursery school was called Winsdale on the avenue in Ealing, just opposite Sutherland Avenue, which goes into it. And so the 3-year process to learn English, to speak English started. And I don't know, so I remember the first day I was put into this room with lots of children talking in English, and I'm totally lost. I know I didn't cry like many children did when they were dumped into a nursery school, but my mum just pointed me up to Krysie and said, they're Polish as well, and they're here as well like you are to learn English. And so the process of starting English started. It lasted about 3 years, but I know that I did not play much with other kids, and I thought that I did not play with other children because I saw the lack of English as the barrier. And there's several experiences I remember in this nursery school. My teachers, there were 2 of them. One was called Miss Reed and the other was called Miss Cox. And one experience was when a group of children were going to the front room where there were desks, like school desks. And I wanted to sit on a school desk and feel proud, but I didn't know how to say it in English. So I thought, I hope to say it in Polish. So I said it in Polish, czy ja mogę iść do pokoju z pulpitami? Can I go to the room with the desks? And the teacher didn't understand. Another incident was when a child was hitting me, and I told my mum, and she said, well, he smacked me. And I heard the words my mum saying, smack me. So the next time when I was sitting in this nursery school, the kid hit me. So I lifted up my hand and said to Miss Cox, smack me. And then I heard this sort of saying, oh, don't be stupid. I didn't understand it. Anyway, that was the start of English. But barely had I settled into the fact that I had to now attend a nursery, I was told that I'm now to go to a Polska szkoła on Saturdays. Polish school was in those days in Grange School in South Ealing. So I attended the przedszkole or nursery school there before it moved into the Ealing Grammar School for boys. So that was the start of a dual life, double life, sort of Monday, Friday English school, and suddenly Saturday and Sunday you slip into Polish life, where you have a Polish school, Polish children, Polish mass, and then Polish Cubs, Scouts, and other things. The other thing is that when we went to English school, I started picking up English, and I noticed that the other Polish children, when they came home to their parents, they started showing off to their parents and speaking English, and their parents answered them in Polish. But my father did not allow us, my sister or me, to speak English at home at all. In fact, my father was so strict that he put my sister and me under the stairs as the punishment if we tried to speak English at home to our parents. So we thought it was very unfair watching other Polish children allowed to speak English. Finally, in the second infants class, I started picking up English and started speaking it. But I hated Polish school till the age of 12. It was great fun during break when we tried to escape from Polish school. We tried to run past the parent who was guarding the exit from the Polish school. We were supposed to go outdoors into the podwórze or playground, but it was great fun trying to dodge the parent or the headmaster and hide in the cupboards. I learned in Polish school about putting itching powder down the backs of people's necks, rubbing their backs and watching them scratch themselves. I learned about shooting from cap guns, and I learned about bubble gum. These were the things I learned in Polish school, and I was a naughty kid under the desk. But then we got a horrible teacher to teach us Polish geography. She was really strict. And then in szósta klasa, sixth class, we had Pani Barbara O'Driscoll, who was also in charge of the Polska Macie Szkolna much later on and has written a lot of books. So my behaviour started improving in szósta klasa. Worst news was that we found out that the very strict geography teacher was going to be our class teacher. So at the end of the first gimnazjalna klasa, I had an oświecenie and ended up by the fourth gimnazjalna klasa representing the Ealing Polish School and inter-school quiz, as well as getting O and A levels, which I think were easy in those days, because for O levels all you had to do was sit one exam, do 2 translations into English, 1 into Polish, write an essay in Polish. For A level, you had the first paper where you did the same, and then you had the second paper where you had to answer 3 1-hour questions on literature. So that was my personal experience in Polish school. Some of I think most of my age group, boys and girls, have their own story to tell. Some of them were sent to Polish boarding school, or Fawley Court or Pittsford, and that had an effect on their life and the quality of education. Some of them discussed a lot about it. When I was about 7 years old, my parents actually took us on holiday to Poland. And we visited our aunts and uncles, and I started traveling around Poland, seeing various things, Polish things. I was quite chuffed that suddenly you had everything written in Polish and everyone was talking in Polish around us. We had, experience with trams in Poland that we didn't have in England, double-decker trains, and that's how it continued. But what I noticed is that the Polish structures in England were put in place by a certain age group or generation who didn't sort of seem to think about the future. And a lot of things have unfortunately passed away or are passing away, but it's good that there's new things which have come. So it was a dual life. Went to Polska, had test for, went to English school. I ended up teaching English for 4 years in Poland. I had 2 jobs thanks to the Polish language. And I think that's all I have to say, and it's maybe more like questions if people have got questions. I think my 10 minutes is up.
Yes, you are very mindful about the time, George. Well done. Yes, it was very interesting. I remember you shared with me about being in Poland and that teaching in Poland. So the first year you didn't really experience outside school. You were very busy, but then you went out and you were surprised by differences, how the society, how the people were, and you even, I think, you weren't impressed. Would you share with us about it?
Well, to summarize it, I see like Poland in 1939. If you imagine 1939 as a box, then there was a divergence of routes where Poland went through different experiences, the occupation, communism, the terror of communism, then the sort of gradual thaw, up to, let's say, 1990, when you had like independence. Whereas our experiences were like 1939, and we still were connected to those experiences in 1939. So now being in Poland, seeing Poland through pink eyes, pink glasses, and then realizing that there's a kind of conflict or difference in culture, which I can compare to like if you build a bridge from 2 sides of a riverbank and then you meet in the middle of the river, but you realize that one side of the bridge is higher than the other. You have like a divergence, and that's the kind of situation which I found. What I also find is that, let's say, going back to 1948, when the people from Poland found themselves in England, you had people of different ages in England. You had the old people in their 50s, 60s who just wouldn't learn English. They just remain in their little circles in Penrose. If you went to Penrose in 1950, you would find like Poland, a pre-war Poland, and those people just died away. Then you had the Polish generals, the Polish soldiers, the old Polish soldiers ended up washing dishes in restaurants. And the other extreme was youngsters in their 20s. Suddenly they had to get education and enter British life and enter the professions. And then you had the people in their 40s who, again, couldn't enter English life. And a lot of people went to America.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Yes, and I wanted to pick on the kind of differences also. Yes, that's one point, but also when we have languages as big part of culture, in the languages, apart from the verbal part, there are gestures, and also even the words. There are these different levels of politeness we talk about, and if people are not aware of that. Often us Polish people make this mistake, or our first language just influences us. that we may sound kind of rude or not kind enough, not friendly, but this is just like something that exists among languages, and as learners we or teachers we should be aware. So yeah, so we don't mean, most of the time we don't mean to be rude. I'm sure everywhere there are some. Yeah, but yes, thank you. I think, yeah, Colin, I'm not sure if there is a question. There were other first languages. Yeah, just a question from Carleen. Thank you, George. I'm interested in if there were other first languages in your nursery school and if all the non-English speakers looked out for one another.
Maybe they did at the beginning, but what I noticed that the two Krisha, I happened to be with them in English school afterwards. There was two other. They integrated more with English people, but I personally felt a bit odd out of, and I was bullied a lot for being Polish, but somehow the other two Polish boys, Alex and Stash, weren't bullied, and ironically, the Krisha joined with a Sarah and wrote to me a very rude letter when I was 10 years old, anonymous letter. Saying, I wish you very
Were
bad.
there any other children from other countries at all, or was it just Polish children and English?
Just Polish children.
Yeah, that does.
Polish children or